Okay, so here we are. I have decided that I'm just gonna go ahead and do a whole spoiler talk about the new series Arcane slash League of Legends because I have a base knowledge of, all the lore of the world, and I just realized it's gonna be really difficult for me to talk about this series without geeking out and just giving my input and expanding on things that I just happen to know because I actively read the lore. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna be reviewing Arcane, League of Legends. So if you haven't seen this series yet, there are gonna be spoilers here. So if you haven't seen episode one, which is what I'm gonna be reviewing, get out of here, go watch it. Or if you don't care about spoilers, feel free to stay. Yeah, so you've got your disclaimer, so let's just get started. And I'll say I will I wanted to hate the series even before I even watched it. League and I have a love-hate relationship with each other. League has kind of just been there, like from the very start, especially during my college days, when I first joined League Club. And how I just feel it's just kind of ironic that we've come full circle now. Jinx was one of the first characters I've ever seen. I originally got into the game of League of Legends around the time when Jinx got released, and you haven't seen the music video called "Get Jinx," that was my very first intro to League of Legends. My very first time, the first character I've ever seen from League of Legends was Jinx, right? That didn't hook me to the game though. What got me was the eventual release of Kindred. At first, I didn't want anything to do with it, but then Kindred got released, and my friends was like, "Oh, but you wouldn't like that. You don't want to play League of Legends." I'm like, "What are you talking about? I'm a Kindred main now." But yeah, I wanted to hate. I wanted to dislike this so much, but I can tell just from episode one that Riot's gonna take over the world. Honestly, if they play their cards right, this has the potential to turn into a whole cinematic universe. No joke. Marvel pretty much gave them the blueprint on how to do things properly. All they have to do is not botch the execution. It's so weird to think about. After all these years, I wouldn't have, like, the meme became real this entire time. Like, don't get me wrong, League's not a bad game. It's actually quite a good game. The company, however, just happens to make poor decisions. That's not in favor with the player base at all. But we've always said that Riot just so happens to be a music production company that just so happens to make a video game, right? The it's insane. Their music is just absolutely phenomenal. Their cinematics amazing, and we've been saying this entire time, Riot should just go ahead and make an anime, and it pretty much like like if you've seen like their cinematic, like the Star Guardian cinematic, um, that where they got Susanoo to do the music for, that was absolutely insane. There's just seeing the evolution of League of Legends and the developers developing their own style and that eventually being translated into this beautiful series called Arcane. It's just so fitting. And I think honestly it got started going back to the very beginning with the Jinx music video because yeah, I honestly thought that was the point where they realized they can, hey, we could probably make a world out of this, like a real like world with these characters. Oh, and boy, I wanted to hate it. League in general, I feel, how do I describe it? I felt like my enjoyment of it has been kind of spoiled, because Riot as a company has this terrible tendency to not follow through with things. Like, as I said before, I'm a huge advocate of the lore of League of Legends. That is the game's like, that is one of the game's strong points ever since they revamped it, starting with like Demacia and then moving towards Noxus, and then changing the lore of other regions and the champions, because when it was just, you know, the old summoners, the lore wasn't going anywhere. Once they changed it, things got a lot more flexible and different stories could be told, and this is the result of that change, and it's so cool to see. Now, out of all the champions and out of all the regions, when I first saw the trailer for Arcane, I was wondering, of all places to start with, as fantastical as their world is, this place, Runeterra, has the potential to be a high fantasy RP. So why start with Piltover and Zon? That was my question. But after watching episode 1, I realized, and I kind of get the hint that this is going to be a very human story, just because of, you know, who we have going on. I've seen the promotion material, so I already know who's like in it. You know, Jinx, before she became Jinx, apparently she's Powder, so we finally have an origin story for Jinx, which is absolutely insane, because, as I said before, I love the lore, and, you know, I'm the type to read all the lore, pay attention to character voice lines, so I'm in the game, watch characters interact on skin spotlight. So there were clues hinting at Jinx having a past, from her interactions with Swain when he takes her soul fragment, to the shopkeeper mentioning when you spawn in as Vi on what's it called, ARAM, to the shopkeeper talking to Vi saying, "Shame, what happened to your sister?" It's always been setting up these questions, right? But as a player, you're probably never going to get answers to this. But years later, here in 2021, we have answers now to the what happened. We're getting answers to the what happened. I knew I'm on episode 1 right now, but we're going to be building to something big, and I feel like this is going to be a very human story based off the players that are going to be in the cinematic world. I know Jace is going to appear at some point. Victor's going to appear at some point. Who else? I don't know who Silco is. That's a new character. I wonder if he's going to be a new champion. There's just so much. And Vi got more development besides just being a punch girl, which is essentially what she was. It's just kind of like a thug before she became a generic like enforcer, like Caitlyn. So we're getting backstory to that. So that was like a ramble, so let's just jump into it and let's just talk about Arcane. Spoilers. So how do I even talk about this? Arcane is just one of those series where, well, I could tell that it's not going to waste my time like I felt League has done, especially as of late with the whole Ruin King event. That's something that's been building up for years. A character who was there in the lore from the very beginning, and they just, his story and execution, I can make a whole video on that. But this series, since it's in movie form, you could just tell a lot of time and attention to detail was taken to make this just beautiful. So we start out at the beginning of the story with two girls, Vi and Powder. Her name's not Jinx yet. Vi and Powder walking across the bridge while Jinx sings "Friend Across the River." It's smoky, it's red, because you get the sense that blood's been spilled, or riot probably has happened. And you get introduced to these two characters, and soon to be 3, because you get introduced to Vander. who's beating someone up with his gauntlets, which I feel is going to come into play later, because as we know, well, as I know about Vi, her signature fighting style is, punches, hit him really hard. And I guess that's who taught her how to fight. Now, I've got my theories about Vander already, just from how people address him in the show. Because my first thought when I saw him, well, not the very first thought, it was like his second appearance in the bar, where he's helping some poor schmuck out who's about to get scammed out of his money, and they give him they call out his title, called the Hound of the Underground, and I'm just like, is that Warwick? Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So we see how these two people meet. I'm guessing it's not for the first time. I'm guessing they know each other. So they're walking across the bridge, just young Vi and young Jinx, and then there's Vander beating someone up, and they look at, there's not a word is spoken. Vander looks over. No. Vi gives Vander a look, and Vander just does. They're over there. And then you just see the smoke clear, and it's implied that the two people who were dead on the ground, it's both Vi and, stop calling her Jinx. She's not Jinx yet. Vi and Powder's parents who are dead on the ground, as evident by their hair color, pink and blue. So, yeah, he takes the two girls and they leave, and while they're walking away, you get to see the enforcers leaving back to their side. I guess they were stopping like a civil uprising or something like that on this bridge, and that's where the fight took place. And then above the clouds, you see, the city, Piltover, the shining city of progress. Mind you, we don't know what happened there, but give me implications. Actually, no, I'm not even going to go there, not yet. But we know there's tension between Piltover and Zon. Piltover is like this shining city. It's like where the upper crust is, even in the lore of League of Legends. It's a city made out of brass and copper, and it's the shining example of progress where only the greatest minds reside, whereas Zon is the underbelly of the city, where all the scum and, lowborn trash is and whatnot. Piltover and Zon, they used to be one place, like in the lore. They used to be together until a chemical explosion happened, which caused an earthquake and split the city apart. So, and with that, they developed their own style of living due to their way of life, where the people of Zon have to scrap and scrape to get by, where as the people of Piltover just kind of coast off of Zon's hard work, I guess. But yeah, that's where the affluent people. And we get introduced to Piltover twice because we get to go and follow the characters when they're older. It's Vi. We get introduced to the characters properly again. We have Vi, who is the older sibling and the leader. We have a young Powder, younger sibling of Vi, and then we get introduced to two more characters that we've never seen before, in Milo and Clagger. And I was kind of shocked during the promotion, during the trailers. I was like, oh no, because if you go to the universe page, or if you read the lore, you know that these characters are connected to each other in some way. And I'm like, I've never seen these people before. I assumed that Milo was a young Victor and Clagger, he was a young fat Jace. But that's not the case here. They're their own people apparently, so that's cool to see. But because they're new and we've never seen them before, they haven't been referenced at all in the lore, I'm just getting death flags right off the bat for them. So I'm just like, I have no idea what's gonna happen to them. This is a cinematic universe, so anything can happen, but I feel like they're set up just to die somehow, some way. I don't know. And the reason why I feel this way, I'm gonna hold off on that point, and we're just gonna move on. So we get introduced to the city of Piltover again. It's, it's Powder, it's Vi, and it's Milo and Tiger, and they're on a job. They're gonna go rob somebody, so they're jungling. They're out traversing the rooftops, Assassin's Creed style. And we get an introduction into each of the characters. Vi's the strong and confident type of person, and Milo and Clagger are experienced as well. And the only outlier here is a young Powder, who's not too confident, not too sure of herself. She's the youngest in the group, and it shows. And how Vi had to encourage Powder to make the jump off the roof, and when she was about to fall, Vi had her back and saved her that way. So they break into this one place, and I'm guessing this one place, it's like in a penthouse or apartment type complex, and it's apparently where an inventor lives. I can only think of, there are a couple inventors in Piltover, but the ones that make sense are either Victor or Jace. So I'm gonna go ahead and guess it's Jace, because Victor was actually born in Zaun, and I guess it would make sense for it to be Jace, since he's kind of in lore. He's kind of like the pioneer of what did Jace pioneer? Was it actually Hextech? I think it was Hextech, or was it just the hammer? I'm not too sure. I think it was Hextech though. But something giant crystals, Skarner's people, yeah. But anyway, they break in and they start stealing a bunch of stuff, right? Now things get set up real interesting, because while they're taking this stuff, Milo notices that there's a crystal right there, right? And Vi tells her to leave it. Powder's off doing her own thing. She hears that, but she doesn't actually see what they're referring to, and it kind of just leads to them, to Powder finding a whole Hextech chest. I'm gonna call it a Hextech chest because of the game, full of these crystals that Vi just told Milo to just leave it. Naturally, Powder didn't, get the context of what Vi was talking about. So what does she do? She starts stuffing her pockets full of these crystals, as the person who resides in that penthouse starts to come back. Right? So while they're escaping, one of the crystals that Powder was trying to stuff in her pocket, it falls out of her pocket, and eventually that thing's dangerous. It gets supercharged. It's dangerous and it's unstable. So when it falls to the ground and clinks against the wall, it causes an explosion, which leads to a chase, because the enforcers, they're spotted by the enforcers. And I just noticed we didn't get introduced to who the apartment complex belonged to, but I'm just gonna go ahead and guess that it's Jace, because it makes perfect sense. Oh, and I love his room, by the way. There's books everywhere. It's kind of messy. He even leaves sandwiches just laying around, which Powder proceeds to eat. But it just makes sense that it is Jace. We even get to see his research on the chalkboard, which looks pretty cool. And then he's studying these crystals, which I'm curious to how he got. I wonder if they're going to introduce the plot point of Skarner's people in here, or where those crystals come from. None of that's explained. It's only episode 1. Or even if Camille's going to appear, because Clan Pharaohs manufactures these crystals. Are they synthetic or are they real? There's just so many questions now. But anyway, a chase ensues, and the chase sequence did not miss a beat. You just feel these kids running for their life, and you get to see them just take off through the city. Every impact that happens feels real. From you just feel the momentum from when they can't, they don't just skirt and just come to a stop. They actually run into the wall and then just keep going to keep that momentum, not breaking pace. You actually feel it, and it's amazing. And while they're being pursued by the enforcers, you get to see how they apprehend fucking criminals when they throw these little, these little, what's it called, like these bolas at them to apprehend them. None of them hit, but I thought that was just cool to see, and how they didn't just resort to just shooting children like right away. Well, terrorists in their eyes, but is there really a difference between children and terrorists? But anyway, so they managed to escape by going through the sewers, which is super dangerous, by the way, because while they're coming down, I got kind of nervous for both Milo and Clagger. I think Milo was the first to go, Clagger was second, then it was like Jinx, then it was Vi, but I thought one of them was going to come down on these like little poles or spikes that were like down there, but they came down pretty okay. Then we move on to our next section, where we are introduced to a new character. I guess he's kind of like a street rat like they are. His name's Deckard, and apparently Vi's group kind of got like set up, I guess, because he was just waiting on them, and I guess he knew about their job. That was kind of like explained while they were at the bar or whatever. Anyway, a fight breaks out because Deckard wants a slice of their cut. And before that even starts, something that's interesting to note, detail, like a lot of one-off things that I thought were just gonna be one-off, that I expect from like lesser shows, like, oh, this thing happens, and then it's like, okay, that's totally that character's fault, it's not going to be brought up again. But no, it totally is. While they're coming back and they run into Deckard, he's like, nice haul, and then Milo's like, something like that, and I'm sitting there watching, I'm like, Milo, shut your mouth. And then something that went over my head was how Jinx, like, not Jinx, Vi kind of like looks back at him. I assumed that was just her looking at Deckard, but no, he was actually looking at Milo, and that actually came back later, where she was, telling, where she was going off on Milo for talking about Jinx and how he messed up this job as well. But anyway, we'll get there, because everything that happens is connected, and I like how do I describe it? So far it's being set up that actions have consequences in this show, and it is the payoff for it isn't wasted, and I can tell that going forward that nothing is going to be wasted, because what I just talked about, what I thought was a one-off thing, was actually paid attention to in great detail and was used to further the plot in a significant way. Excellent. So a fight breaks out, and these kids are savage as fuck. They don't give a fuck. They're just, they're punching each other in the face. They're breaking jaws. They even like resort to like using weapons. Like you even see Vi take a punch. We know how overpowered Vi can be, like when she's fed. But here, this is a young Vi, so she actually takes a couple of hits. Right? They throw the stuff that Jinx put her to the side because she's the youngest, and then they just start fighting. Milo holds his own pretty well. Clagger's just the tank. He's like 1v2ing over there. And Vi's, fighting. She's fighting the other jungler. She's fighting the other boss. And she's, putting up a good fight too. Vi gets the upper hand, and she finishes like, what's his name? Deckard, by stomping him into like the pavement. Just straight savagery there. Whereas Jinx, being the typical ADC, just decides to run away from separating herself from her team, which leads to her losing the loot that they got from the penthouse, right? I'm pretty sure it's Jace's house. I'm just gonna say it's Jace's house. If I'm wrong in episode 2, I'll just acknowledge it. Let's just say that's Jace's house or whatever. Wait. Screw it. We'll just say it's Jace's house for now. I'm pretty sure it's Jace. So, okay, so Jinx is cornered, right? And we get to see a little bit more of her character. We get to see how she differs. She's not a fighter, right? She's the youngest. She's not a fighter. She's not as experienced, and it shows. She's not the Jinx that we know, who from the lore. Not yet. I keep saying she's Jinx. My bad. I'm sorry. Powder. Her name's Powder. So we get to see that she's an inventor. She's a tinker. She gets these nails and she puts them into this little, this doodad that she like cranks up, and she's supposed to throw it and it's supposed to explode and shoot nails out. Pretty dangerous, but that's just how it is in Zon. You gotta fight and scrape to get by. Naturally, it doesn't work. So she does what any kid would do. She panics and she throws the stuff into the lake. And she gets away. And she makes it back. She makes it back to her team, and she's kind of like scolded, by like Milo. But vibing, the protective older sister, just tells him to drop it, and they make their way back to Zon. Now, this is our first viewing of Zon as a city, and the music that plays during it, Welcome to the Playground, describes Zon perfectly, right? It's where people, it's the underbelly. It's trash, but it's a trash city, but it's their trash, and the people own it, right? And what were their lyrics? I'll something, I'll sell you a dream, welcome to the playground. That's essentially what Zon, like, is. You just look around and you could just smell the chemicals in the air. You could just smell the smog and right? But it looks kind of fun. In contrast to like Piltover's Art Deco style, you get to see Zon is kind of, if you don't know what Art Deco is, it's characterized by like solid shapes, like a lot of squares, triangles. It's orderly. Whereas Zon, on the other hand, it's kind of characterized by a type of Art Nouveau, right? Where you see things are kind of like curvy. You see it in the architecture, asymmetry. You even get to see it in the clothing of the characters all around. The side characters. Even the clothes that Milo wears. He has like a gauntlet on one, like a shoulder pauldron on one side, but not on the other. It's even in Vi's clothing. It's in everyone's clothing. So I thought that was a pretty cool contrast, and we just get to walk around and we get to see it like it's the black market where all the smugglers, the thieves, the liars, the cheats, the misfits are. It's where everyone is that we know. And some of my favorite characters from the game are from Zon. Like, I'm wondering what my boy Victor is gonna make an appearance, because I love Victor's character. I love his lore in game, and I love his design. Everything about Victor is absolutely amazing. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. It's on the episode. So we get to the bar. Oh, you even get to see one small thing. I just kind of lost it at Krugs. You get to see, I guess it's like a black market where they're selling Krugs as pets or something, but free the Krugs, man. Anyway, you get to the bar called The Last Drop, where we are reintroduced properly to the character Vander, and another character. I guess he's not important. It's just a guy who's getting, kind of like ripped off this deal that he made with these other bandits or something like that. And then Vander comes over, and we get his epithet, what he's known as down there. Vander. Oh, so you must be Vander, the Hound of the Underworld. And immediately my mind went to, is this guy Warwick? I think he might be Warwick, because I don't know, Vander's character design, he just kind of has a lichen appearance to him. It's the sideburns, right? And the little thing that he wears, the little gauntlet, or what's it called? Bango or whatever. Bracer, the little bracer he wears on his arm. There was a scene where he touched it, and as we know, like from the game, Warwick actually has a metal claw because he was experimented on by Singe. I guess he lost it because it fell off, and he got a replacement. And basically, I'm just gonna stick to my gut and just say this guy's Warwick. Don't know how he becomes Warwick yet, unless they're gonna change something fundamental with the lore. But it's episode 1, and I feel like there's a lot of room to like explain how we get there, because Warwick's backstory is that he used to be a criminal till he turned over a new leaf, but then I don't know, something happened, and he ended up getting abducted by Singed or something like that, and turned into a monster. Now he only has powers. But yeah, the Hound of the Underworld. Who comes in, who's a total boss. He's like, a word of advice: don't threaten the guy who pours the drinks. And everyone in the bar is like, hey, don't start trouble with this man, or she could have a problem. So they back off. Dude gets his money, and Vander sees that the kids are back. So while they're down there, Milo starts chewing out Jinx, understandably, because he's frustrated that essentially they took that beating for nothing. Jinx, I keep saying Jinx, powdered through, the loot in the river, and she booked it. And there was a little emphasis placed on that, not the river, the lake, for some reason, or at the pier, or whatever. There's emphasis placed on the water at the pier. I didn't get a good look, but the camera kind of lingered there, and I was looking, and I was like, something about it just didn't sit right. I was like, is that for? Because I read a lot of the lore, and we know, like from the lore, that Piltover, or was it Zahn, there's Shuriman ruins under there. I think we know that because Ezreal's lore. There's Shuriman ruins under there, and where there's Shurima, I just assume there's Void, right? So I'm wondering if that's gonna get expanded on, and there's a couple reasons for my thinking as well. And I'll get to that as we get near the end. So, anyway, Milo's chewing Jinx out. And Jinx is frustrated and saying they don't understand. She's smaller than they are. And, she's smaller than they are. They're bigger. And, she was scared and all that. But Milo makes an excellent point saying, stick with us, take a punch or two. But that gets interrupted when Vander comes in and, tells everyone to leave, and he starts scolding Vi about her responsibilities as the oldest, because I get the impression that Vander and Vi are two kindred spirits in a sense. Because, I don't know, I just get the impression that Vander sees a lot of himself in Vi. She's young, she has a lot of anger in her. She can be misguided. She's most definitely reckless. She's impulsive. She has a temper. And I felt like what we know just from, I don't know, the context clues that we got during their interaction, it was like, I'm trying to describe it. I don't know a lot about Vander yet, and I'm trying to temper myself from not going back to Warwick's story, even though that wasn't even essentially this is Warwick's backstory. I'm convinced he's that's in my mind. I'm convinced Vander's Warwick, because it just makes sense, right? But anyway, they're two kindred spirits is what I'm trying to say, and he's trying to teach her how to be better. Right? Because the heart of what Vander was saying is look, if Vi has a responsibility to be better for her people, just like I assume Vander is doing as well, because he's not the same man he used to be, and you get that context through the character's dialogue between him and Vi, right? So I like to see that they have kind of a father-daughter relationship going on. You could really tell that they have a lot of love for each other, just based off of how Vander takes care of her when she sees that she's been hurt. How he just dabs the ointment on her and tries to clean up her wounds, and tells her that the fist it doesn't lead to any good results, and there are better ways to do things, to get things done, right? So I just love to see that. Like, I just love to see parenting, because in a lot of media and in a lot of origin stories and whatever, for some reason the parents are always dead. So it's good to see. Oh, I hope I didn't jinx it, but it's good to see that. I hope I didn't jinx it. Oh my god, if he's gonna be Warwick, I feel like he's being set up to die too. Now that I think about it, wait. Oh, wait. Let me stop. It's only episode 1. Okay, so it's in my head now. Okay, so before they leave, I just realized something. Before he sent out the kids out of the room, he asks where they even got that tip out. They never go there. He looks at Jinx, and Jinx just kind of like spills it. She's the first one to break. She's just like, yeah, we got the tip from Little Man. And I'm just like, Little Man? Who's Little Man? My first thought, oh, it's gonna be one, it's probably just gonna be a new character we're gonna be introduced to. But the beautiful thing I love about this series, there's just so much payoff. If you pay attention to what characters are saying, you just get so much information that's relevant later on in, the next scene, right? So Vander goes off to go have a word with their informant. He takes Clagger with them. Milo stays behind with Vi and Powder, right? So while they're staying behind, you get to see where Jinx gets the stuff for her little inventions. Oh, and I just remember what her invention was called. It was called Mauser. The little, it was supposed to be like a screw grenade that's supposed to explode and, shoot screws. What's it called? Nails all over. Not screws, nails all over the place. But it didn't work. And that's going to be a theme about her inventions not working, because she's not Jinx yet. And as we know, Jinx is deadly. She's also an engineer. She's a tinkerer. She's also an inventor in her own right. She's highly intelligent. So it's going to be interesting to see how that character comes into her own. So, like, how are we going to get there? So, moving on. Anyway, while Powder is digging through the trash, she finds a little snappy thing. It looks like a bear trap, but we know that she uses those for her, in the game, she uses those for her E. It's kind of like, snaps and it holds you in place, so she can give you the zappy zap thing. Anyway, she goes back and she overhears Vi and Milo talking. Milo's pretty much there talking shit about how Jinx isn't half the person Vi was. We should stop bringing her. She jinxes every job. And it goes back. And I like how the animosity didn't just die just because Vi told them to drop it. Milo's still upset about that, because even when they were in the sewer, they were like, how did that even happen? And they all look at Powder and they're like, well, she's like, don't look at me, I didn't do anything. And legitimately, Powder didn't know. It was legitimately an accident. She didn't even know how that happened. How was she supposed to know that would happen? Right? She wouldn't have, because she didn't get to see, she wasn't in the room when they first discovered one of those crystals in the first place. So I like how that was like paid off with the consequence of that. Of every time Powder leaves the group, something bad happens, right? Every time she separates from the group and she's on her own, something goes wrong, right? And you also get the sense that this isn't the first time this has happened. She has a history of doing this, right? Jobs go bad whenever they bring her along. It just happens, and I like how they're setting that up. She's a Jinx. She jinxed it. And I feel like eventually that is actually setting her up to become the Jinx that we know from the game. So that's going to be interesting, but I'm just wondering what's going to be the catalyst. I can only imagine. We're only in episode 1, and my mind can only go so far. So, but yeah. So, of course, Jinx is there to overhear that, and she's also there to overhear Vi agreeing with Milo. And this is what I was talking about, payoff. We were paid off by Vi throwing Milo screw-ups back in his face, right? The things I pointed out about how at the beginning where they were confronted by Deckard in his game about Milo opening his mouth about saying that nice haul? Yeah, something like that. Vi even calls him out. He's like, something like that? Why are you telling people our business? When I give you this look, that means shut up. Shut your mouth. And she starts going off about how at least Jinx doesn't do this. At least Jinx knows when to be quiet. At least Jinx, there's a bunch of things that Jinx can't do. She acknowledges that. But Milo also screwed up today. And I love how it was paid off with Vi throwing that back in his face to defend her sister. And it's a shame that that Powder wasn't there to hear it. Of course she would only hear the bad parts and not the good. And that comes back later as well. She still has the crystals in her pocket. And she was going to come and show them, but she didn't get the chance because Milo's talking. So, because Milo talking again, Milo's mouth also gets them in trouble, right? Actions in this show have consequences. And I feel like those crystals are gonna play another role because because I'm using my base knowledge of League of Legends. If you I'm thinking back to Warwick and Swain's voice lines to Jinx. Voices and faces fading in the flames. It was all her fault, and that comes from when Swain kills Jinx and takes her soul, and then you hear Warwick when he interacts with Jinx. He's like a girl screaming, "You were there." Right? It has to be Vander. Anyway, the girl screaming, "You were there." And even when Warwick interacts with Vi, he's like, "Who taught you how to punch?" It is Vander. Vander's Warwick. So I'm wondering at which point how is Warwick gonna appear? Because it's only 9 episodes, right? And I think 6 got released this week or something like that. Let's see. But yeah, we'll see how we get there. But anyway, back to Vander's point of view. We get to a new shop where we're introduced to Vander's what is his name? Vander's friend Bobok, right? Who's apparently like his right hand man, his confidant, the guy who he goes to sell his wares to, his legally acquired goods. And we get introduced to Bobok, and we get to find out who Little Man is. If you've been paying attention, Little Man has been referenced since the beginning, right? Since the beginning, from when we first got into Piltover until where Vander asks who their informant was, and then we get introduced to Echo when Bobok tells Echo to stop doing what he's doing and go outside for a little bit so the adults can talk. And he's like, "But I'm almost done with this thing." And you get to see how Echo is also a little mechanic as well. He's also a tinker. He's also kind of like an engineer. Echo's very intelligent. I would say next to Victor and Jace, Echo is also one of the most intelligent characters in the series, especially for his age. Like, Echo's actually one of my favorite characters as well. I should probably make a League of Legends tier list at some point and explain why. But yeah, he gets out and Echo is just a treat. The animators, whoever animated everything, especially Echo's movement as he's just carrying stuff out the door as he's just shuffling along, and then as he's leaving, you get the payoff by finding out who Little Man is when you hear Clagger say, "Hey, you hear Echo say, Clagger, my man. And then you hear Clagger say, hey, little man. And then you're like, wow, Echo was little man the entire time. And you get to find out that Echo found out. Echo gave them the tip because the person who came and bought all that stuff, Echo followed them back to his place, and that's how they got the tip. He even paid with gold, double the price. So yeah, that's pretty neat. That's pretty neat information. So Echo's being established as a reliable source of information as well, and maybe even capable, because you get to see Echo interact with Clagger, showing him that Vi, in addition to being smart, right, street smart at that he also has a little bit of fighting training from Vi. So I feel like that's being set up, because as we know in the game, Echo is classed as an assassin, and he hurts and he uses time. But that's probably going to get introduced later, because it's established that, you know, Echo gets crystal of his own from a destroyed laboratory or factory or whatever. That was the result of Victor and Jace's battle. So I wonder if that's going to get set up in this story at all. But anyway, you get to see a little bit of interaction between Vander and Balbok, and they're just talking about pretty much they're just talking about like Vi, right? Yeah, they're just talking about Vi and how Vi doesn't, and how, you know, Balbok is pretty much saying that they don't want to live in, that eventually the kids are going to want to make a name for themselves, and Vander's like, I'm just trying to teach them, you know, how to live, you know, just lives or something like that. I don't really remember the conversation, and it was kind of inconsequential because the enforcers show, right? And we meet the enforcer named Grayson. I love her voice. Grayson just seems like a badass, like new character for real. But they're basically there because of the event that happened, and they're looking for the people responsible for it, the people want answers. And it's notable how she goes to Vander. They know each other, and Vander apparently helps keep the peace in the city, right? The Hound of the Underworld. So I'm guessing yeah, she gives them the things like, hey, if you find anything, or if you know who did it, we need someone needs to pay for this. You have I'm guessing it's a little tube thing you're supposed to put in, like, it's mail that's supposed to be delivered like via tube, and it's supposed to go from the Undercity back up to Piltover, and that's how they'll get that message, right? So he didn't do anything with it. He didn't throw it away. He didn't do anything with it. So I feel like that tube thing, that message in a bottle, is going to be set up for later, because he didn't get rid of it. And, you know, the show has already showed me that it pays a lot of attention to detail. And nothing is wasted. Not even the movement, not even the dialogue. The dialogue is smooth. Every movement has a purpose. Everything in the show has a purpose. And it's amazing to see that this show is only 40 minutes, but it zipped by so freaking quick, and before I knew it, it was over. So we get to see how resourceful Echo is. He's listening in on this conversation with his little what's it called, telescope, going from the roof down to the main floor. And a little Easter egg, you get to see he's looking through a Jinn mask and other masks that I think were familiar, maybe from the trailer or something as well. I don't know, but those masks look familiar. But I most definitely recognized the Jinn mask, so that was obviously like a little Easter egg. But anyway, Grayson goes about her business. We're introduced to another Piltover enforcer, but it's inconsequential. I don't think we even got a name yet. but he seems like he's gonna be important because he took his mask off. So I guess he'll appear in like episode 2 or something, maybe. But Grayson's cool. I like her a lot. But before we leave, it's notable that when she's talking to Bender, Grayson said that a couple kids blew up a Kiraman flat, or a Kiraman study or lab or whatever they called it, which sets up Caitlyn, because if you know the lore, I read the lore, Caitlyn's last name is Caitlyn Kierman, and she's from a wealthy merchant clan, right? So I'm kind of wondering about that. I thought it was actually Jace. I thought that was Jace's lab. Jace isn't a Kierman, I don't think. I'm trying to think. But then again, maybe he's just sponsored, because we know that they do have those in Piltover. So, we'll see. I'm pretty sure it's Jace, though. I'm not changing my mind. Unless I'm proven. Okay, so, anyway, cutting back. We cut back to Vi and Jinx. Jinx, Powder. We cut back to Vi and Powder, right? And she's upset that her little invention didn't work. She's upset about the day, right? And Vi, being a really good big sister, is coming over to try and cheer her up, asking her about who she's working on, what she's working on now. Powder names her inventions. I forgot what this new one was called, but Mauser didn't work. She's working on a new thing. And Powder lets her know that she overheard the conversation about how she's not half the person she was, and basically she feels bad because she knows it's true. But Vi cheers her up by taking her outside and telling her, hey, we all have days, but we pick ourselves back up and we just try again. Like, even something I feel is being set up as well. A lot of emphasis is being placed on Powder's inventions not working. Like jobs, like a lot of things are being set up, man. Jobs don't go right when she's around. Her inventions don't work. Everything she touched just goes to shit. Nothing works, and I feel like that's been established even before we started this series, because they, like, off screen, they have history with her. They know this came from their mouths, right? We are just getting to know her, so we see, oh, she's just an innocent girl. She doesn't know any better. She's still learning, and I'm sure Vi sees that from that perspective as well. But at the same time, that's her sibling. They're siblings, so it's like, yeah, I know, but that's my sister, and I'm gonna defend her anyway. So, I felt like something else is being set up as well. If things don't go right, why not just leave her behind? If this isn't just a one-off occurrence, why not just leave her behind? They don't do that, I feel. They stick together, but if you notice, I think I said it before, whenever because it happened twice, whenever Powder separates from a group, things tends to go wrong. So I feel like she's always with them when that happens. She does it on her own accord. I'm kind of wondering what's going to happen if she's forcibly, like, left behind. I'm just trying to think, because, you know, things come out of characters' mouths, right? Whenever they speak, and when they speak, especially in a world like this, they speak with a purpose, right? Every line has a purpose, and it's put there for a reason. I feel like it's kind of like a Chekhov's gun situation, or a red herring, or whatever you call it. So anyway, back to it. They take her outside. Vi and Powder go outside, and she's, you know, just telling the stories about their own fuck ups, and, you know, how we all have bad days, and starts making Powder feel a little bit better. She says, one day your inventions will work, right? And knowing what we know, we know who she becomes. We're just watching the road of how she's eventually going to get there. I'm trying to think at which point are they going to start working, because Powder shows Vi that she still has the crystals, right? She still has these. The day wasn't a complete waste. Maybe we should tell Vander about this. That was Jinx's idea, right? Vi's the one this time around to say no. Let's keep it to ourselves, right? And we've already seen what those crystals can do, and they're unstable. And the thing about that is, Powder doesn't know. She doesn't know at all. She doesn't know how the explosion happened. She doesn't have a lot of information to work with. None of them do. So they have no idea what they have in their hands. The explosion, just one little crystal caused from just rolling into a wall, just boom, up in smoke. I'm thinking back to the lore, to the character voice lines, and I'm just like, oh man, what can possibly lead to the fire that Warwick referenced? No, not Warwick. What could possibly lead to the fire that Swain referenced? Something, there's a fire somewhere that's gonna happen. And that was hinted at like a couple years back when Swain got his rework and was released. So I'm just like, man, how far ahead did they think? Because now I'm just looking out for the potential for fire. Like, what causes a fire? An explosion, probably. Maybe. We'll see. So anyway, they decide to keep the crystals. Now keep in mind that idea came from Vi. Powder wanted to show it to Vander and give it to him, but Vi said, we'll keep these. Why that is, we'll find out in episode 2, I guess. So we get to our closing. We get introduced to to a new character named Silco. I saw the promotional art for him. I thought for sure that was going to be Singed, just like I thought Clacker was going to be a young fat Jace and Milo was going to be a young Victor. But no, Silco's his own character now, and who I guess has history with Vander based off of what Deckard, the information Deckard told him that well, he took an interest in Vander, and he was like, oh, Vander's in trouble, and Silco was like, that's the smartest thing you've said all day. Now take him away and get the boy a meal. And I thought Silco was singed, but I guess he's not singed. I'm guessing there was a scientist in the room too, because he's in like a lab area, and you see that he's working. You see green, which is what the colors I associate with Singed, because Singed is the mad chemist of Zon, right? And you also see tubes of purple, and there's a scientist there. I think that's Singed, because he's the only one there that's working on something. He's working on chemicals. Transmutation was Singed specialty. I'm not sure if it was. We get glimpses of him, but I guess this is going to be the origin story of a couple characters, I guess, because Singed isn't quite Singed yet, is he? I'm guessing it's Singed. That's the only person I think I can think of, the only chemist I know, like in the series, right? So he's working on this stuff. It's this purple stuff, and they give it to this rat. And speaking of origin stories, this is the origin story of Twitch as well, because he's like, is it ready yet? He's like, it's almost ready, but, a couple more tests or whatever. And there's this cat that's pawing at this mouse inside of a glass cage. So they put this cat inside, and then the mouse is like, oh no, danger, and it goes to get a drink, right? To drink. That's Singed voice line, right? So it drinks this stuff and it starts mutating. You don't get to see what it turns into, but it's enough to frighten the cat that could under normal circumstances can kill this mouse. And then you get the idea that whatever that mouse turned into, it's freakishly big and it's freakishly strong because it manages to crack the glass while it's in there murdering the cat, right? So I'm gonna go on a limb here and just guess that was the origin story of Twitch. So if that's what if the scientist is who I think it is, and I think it's Singed, then Singed made Twitch, and I think that makes perfect sense considering that Singed also made Warwick in his quest to study how to extend life in transmutation or transfiguration. I think it's transmutation. But yeah, he made a mutant, and Twitch is a mutant rat, and whatever that purple stuff was, that helped do it. And speaking of that purple stuff, I like talking about color schemes as well. There's only one place I know that has a purple color scheme. So here's what I'm thinking. Is that stuff from the Void? Because I'm trying to think back. They placed a lot of emphasis on the water just for how long the water that Jinx threw the stuff into, right? Like at the very beginning. There was emphasis on that water. I don't know why my mind went to Void, but I think it might be the Void down there, because what we know from Nami's story in League of Legends, there are Void portals under the sea that have yet to be closed, right? So I'm wondering if there's a Void portal near Piltover somewhere, because this is just speculation, we didn't see anything, but I'm just wondering, where would they get the purple stuff? Because I'd imagine anything that Singe synthesizes would probably be green, maybe even blue, but the purple stuff and how it glows, it's a very strong void color, right? So I don't know. That's just my speculation. We'll see how it turns out. So Sin Jackson, if he's ready, if he has anyone in mind for testing, and then Silco's like, I have a volunteer. So I'm like, okay, who's he gonna use it on? Because I'm wondering as well if this is gonna be the origin story of Dr. Mundo, maybe, because I saw the promotional material in the trailer and I'm like, oh, there was a guy there who looked kind of buff and had the purple like veins and stuff going on. I'm wondering if that was Mundo, but it didn't seem like Mundo though. And I'm pretty sure recently Riot changed Mundo's lore, so I'm wondering how that's gonna shake out. It might not even be Mundo. So the only other person I could think who they might use that on, that it was being implied, is either Vander, since Silco seems to have an interest in Vander, or that kid that he said get him a meal, Decker, right? So he might just use it on Decker. Why not his own underling, I guess? And what it'll do to him, knowing Singe, is probably some sort of enhancement based off of what we saw with the rat. So we'll see. We have no idea what it is yet. But where the show ended, and it was pretty good. I can't wait. Oh, so good. Can't wait to see what happens next. Nothing in this show was wasted, and based off of the first episode, I can say that Arcane is most definitely worth it. It's just, maybe it's too soon to say. We're gonna wait till the first 3 episodes, because I can normally gauge if a show is pretty shit off of the first episode, if it's gonna be good or bad. Because I usually have like a 3-episode rule, but I could tell just from episode 1 that this show is phenomenal. just from episode 1. The pacing, the movement, the animation, the voice acting, top tier. Everything in this show is top tier. So hopefully Brad can stick the landing, and I can't wait to get to episode 2. So I will be here reviewing episode 2. I'll get that out when I get that out, and I hope you enjoyed this. If you haven't already, please go watch Arcane. I honestly feel that if Brad plays the cards right, this is going to be the best show that's come out in the last decade. That's just my opinion. Feel free to agree or disagree in the comments, and let me know what you think about it. Like, what you thought about my theories. Like, for people who've seen the show already, feel free to comment. I don't care about spoilers personally. I always say that. All that matters is how we get there, right? Spoilers don't bother me, but okay. But yeah, this has been my Arcane talk / discussion of episode 1. So I'll see you during the next one. Bye now.